We got David on the line, Dad, so bring him in for us.
David, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. David Greene, who's great quarterback at the University of Georgia, does a lot of SEC work now. I'm not going to sit here and brag on you, but he in 4 years he had 42 wins. So that's a lot of cotton-picking wins. David, what?
No, I was going to say, I was right. It was I was fortunate to be on some good football teams and good defenses as well. When you got guys like Pollock, Thomas Davis, Odell Thurman, some of those guys on defense, it made it a lot easier to win some games.
Well, he won the Sugar Bowl in 2002. Anyway, I'm not going to sit here and brag on you. Everybody that keeps up with football, and most of our listeners do, know what kind of player you were. First question I'd like to ask you, Barry, my son, and I are on here, is Jeremy Pruitt coached the Alabama quarterback. How much advantage will that be, if any?
Coach, I don't think that's necessarily a huge advantage. I think by watching tape, to begin with, you can tell a lot about a player and tendencies and, kind of what he likes to do and kind of athlete he is. I think if anything, it helps him figure out, kind of his demeanor, how he handles himself when he gets into, pressure situations. I think that's maybe the only advantage it would have. But I think overall, it's not a huge deal. We're very fortunate to have Coach Pruitt here at Georgia. I mean, I think you can even sense the change. Georgia's had a lot of talent over the last few years and on the defensive side of the ball. But the problem has been discipline, and that's the thing that we struggle with. When Coach Grantham was here, and I think everybody knows that, the Georgia-Alabama game in the championship back in, I guess it was 2012, that defense was loaded with talent. I mean, there's a bunch of the guys that had gotten drafted, but we were just so undisciplined. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that Jeremy Pruitt has brought to this football team, is that and the little swagger and confidence in the fact that, we're not hoping to go out there and win championships, that, they expect to win the East.
I was a little bit surprised. I liked Mike Bobo a great deal because all offense coordinators get busted all the time. I get so sick of it. But go to Schottenheimer, who is a pro guy. Has he changed a lot of things, David, or is it pretty much the way it was? Is it? I don't want you to say better or worse, but is it
right.
Is it quite different than it has been?
Well, not as much as I thought. And, I was kind of like you, Coach, it was big shoes to fill when you look at what Mike Bobo did when he was at Georgia. Yeah. I mean, he was averaging over 40 points a game like the last few years. And I tell you, Coach Schottenheimer's done a great job. I mean, it helps when you got guys like Nick Chubb, Sony Michel.
Sure.
Certainly makes it a lot easier to call plays. But I tell you, the one thing I think he's done such a good job of the last few weeks is he's getting Grayson Lambert into the flow of the football game. And that's the one thing all the Georgia fans, Coach, were freaking out after Vanderbilt. We didn't complete a pass until the third quarter against Vanderbilt. And so, the fans were scared to death. And I think one of the biggest reasons we struggled there is they really just tried to get Chubb involved in the game. We didn't have a lot of easy passes early on. And then when we played South Carolina, what do we do the first three plays? We give Grayson Lambert easy passes. He gets into the rhythm of the game. Then next thing you know, he turns around, hands the ball off to Chubb. Chubb does what Chubb always does. And then you get Sony Michel in her game. So I think the key to Georgia offensively, if you can get those three guys in rhythm early, a lot of good things can happen for the Bulldogs.
Well, David, hey, this is Barry, and I've always been a huge SEC fan. I actually worked at Georgia probably way back before you were there with Hugh Durham the first year. And Athens, great town, great football town. They love their football. What is the buzz there? Now are they already buzzing in Athens right now? And then I think Mark Richt is a great coach. He does a great job, but for whatever reason, there's always one game that people want to get on him about. So now they're saying, well, if he can win this game, then this is going to solidify him as being a great coach, which is a bunch of hogwash. This one game is not going to determine what Mark Richt is. But kind of talk about the buzz in Athens right now for this game, and talk a little bit about Mark Richt.
Well, there's certainly is a huge buzz. There's been a buzz in Athens for probably the last 8 months about this game. Of course, Georgia and Alabama, they don't play each other every year, so when you get a chance to finally play, and obviously, everybody's got so much respect for Alabama, and that's one of the other reasons why it's such a big game. But I think everybody in Athens is excited about this team. We think for the first time it's probably the best the defense has played in a while. Offensively, it's probably the most complete offense. I shouldn't say we've had in a while. We've been pretty good offensively. But people are excited about the quarterback, the way he's playing right now. He's got a lot of confidence. We've got a lot of excitement around the running backs. And so it's probably one of the more complete teams that Georgia's had in a while. But it's a huge test. And I'll be honest with you, the Georgia fans, it's tough to be a coach in the SEC, and Georgia is one of those places where they expect to win championships. Winning 8-9 games a year isn't enough if you're watching the SEC championship game on TV. It's just not enough. And I know for a lot of fans sitting there watching Missouri play for the East the last couple of years was gut-wrenching. And but at the same time, when you talk about Coach Rick, he is a great coach. And the one thing coaches cannot do is they can't play the game. And a lot of times, I played 4 years for him. I always felt like when I entered a game, I was prepared to go out there, and he gave us a plan. It was our job to go execute it. And there were times where the plan was there, and you know what, we didn't execute and we didn't win. But it wasn't necessarily typically because of the plan. It normally had more to do with the players not getting the job done.
Well, there's been talk around here. I think they actually asked Coach Saban about it. Maybe it's because Jeremy Pruitt, but that this Georgia team, there's been some staff members go from Alabama over there, or maybe had one stop before they got there. But this Georgia team looks a lot like what Alabama looks, built on running the football, playing solid defense, not making mistakes. Do you see a lot of Alabama in this Georgia team? And then the Alabama fans are thinking, man, that's one thing we can do now. We can stop the run. The spread stuff bothers us, but teams that try to run the football, they're playing right into our hands. I kind of want to get you to comment on both those things.
Well, I think you're right. I think Alabama does match up very well against Georgia when it comes to the running game. I think our bread and butter is certainly, if we can give Nick Chubb the ball, 24 times a game, and he's running off tackle, that's where we've been really successful. I think at Georgia, if we want to be successful offensively, we got to find a way to make Alabama cover the entire field. And when you talk about Ole Miss and some of the teams that have given Bama trouble, the Johnny Manziels are the ones that make them cover sideline to sideline. And if you're just going to run off tackle against Alabama, that is not the plan to beat them.
Yeah, good luck.
It's the best defensive front and probably the best interior seven I've seen in a long, long time. And even though they gave up so many points against Ole Miss, it was off turnovers. They beat the tar out of Ole Miss up front. And so, I think Sony Michel and Isaiah McKenzie are going to be huge for Georgia this weekend. I would expect, if I'm the Georgia coach, my plan would be to have those guys stretching the field, even if I'm handing off to Chubb, I would send one of those guys on one of those fake reverses just to keep the backside defensive end honest, where he's got to respect it, hand it off to him a few times on those fly sweeps just to make Bama cover sideline to sideline.
I had players that were better than I thought they were going to be and not as good as I thought they were going to be. But to me, from a mental standpoint, for Georgia to take the quarterback from Virginia, where the Virginia coaches saying it wasn't even close, the other guy was the better quarterback for us, even though I know coming to Georgia, he was probably dating Miss Georgia, so it made him want to come. But to me, I was astonished. I said to myself, they're taking the quarterback from Virginia, and they thinking he's good enough to start. He couldn't play for Virginia. It shows me that Schottenheimer and Mark Richt have got a lot of you-know-whats. They got a lot of you-know-whats. I'm proud of the guys that say, look, we think the guy can play. I don't care what Virginia said. It doesn't matter to me. We think the guy can play, and the Booger Bear can play.
Well, there's no doubt. And, Coach has always been that way. When he first came to Georgia, think about it, it wasn't real popular to start me either as a redshirt freshman. When Corey Phillips, who had been playing before, had thrown for 400 yards in a game, I never played. And it was his first head coaching job, and that's something I was always grateful for Coach for. I mean, he kind of stuck his neck out on the line, and I was just a freshman who had never played ever. And so, and I think he found out with Grayson Lambert. I'm with you, Coach. I think if it was close, and this is just my opinion, I don't know. I think if it was close, I think there's no doubt Bryce Ramsey gets the job because he's the guy that's been there a long time. In my opinion, and of course they're going to say that it was tight and it was a three-way tie or it was close. There's no way that they give that job to Grayson Lambert when he's been there for a month and a half. If it was even remotely close, in my opinion, I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, I just marveled at that because you get so much crap about people saying they taking the back from from Virginia who Virginia didn't think could play. So
well, Coach, the thing that's been to me, the thing I've been so impressed with Grayson Lambert is just how poised he sees. If you watch him play at all, he seems to be a guy that's extremely comfortable and that feels in control. I had to go do the film room show at Mississippi State last week, and I said the same thing about Dak Prescott, watching him play right now. It's just a guy when he's running the offense, both these guys, they just look like, hey, I've got this. I'm seeing exactly what I'm seeing. I know where to go with the ball. It doesn't seem to be too big of a platform, and we'll see. This is by far Grayson. It's going to be his biggest test he'll face, and I'll be anxious to see how he handles it.
Well, I think the football game, you always say this, but I think it's really true. This football game comes down to turnovers. A fumble here or an interception here. I think they're even Steven, and I think it basically comes down to turnovers.
Yeah, turnovers, and I think the old momentum. Momentum's one of those things in sports that so underrated. If you can grab that momentum and hang on to it and run with it. Some of these games, they end up being a lot different than you ever, you dream of them being. And a lot of times it's just because you can get that momentum and run with it.
Well, we enjoy you being on the film room and doing what you do for the SEC and being the kind of person that you are. And Barry and I very, very much appreciate you taking time to be on.
Hey, David, before we let you go, now we had Ray Goff on a week and a half ago. And Ray told me that I could have one of his tickets in his suite. All right, so I got one, but I just need two. My wife wants to go to the game.
Leave him alone.
And I've asked everybody, David, you're my last hope. I know Joe Namath's not going to give me any tickets. Do you have one, David?
Tell him to watch it on TV, David. Tell him to watch it on TV.
Hey, let me tell you, all those Zaxby's that Coach Goff owns, I know he can scrounge up one more.
He's got all kind of money.
Hey, David, let me ask you this.
You're right.
And he told me he wasn't going to the game because somebody was getting married at like 4:30 or something on like one of the busiest streets coming in Athens. Tell me that cannot. Have you ever heard of something like that? Getting married the day of the Georgia-Alabama game.
He dances to a
he's
different
going.
Now,
that's
right?
The amazing thing.
Do what?
Is that he's actually going.
I know it. So anyway, David, we appreciate it.
We appreciate you. You were great. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you.